What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you. I did the video with the sideline interactions, kind of looking at what Madden Next Gen is selling us versus what 2K8 already gave us console generations ago. And I wanted to do it again because EA uses stunning weather detail as a selling point, a reason to go Next Gen consoles. Weather like never before, visually enhanced weather conditions, 10 times more particles, 60 frames per second. All these things that they choose to promote, choose to highlight, choose to tell you is a reason to go buy another console. Yet they haven't taken full advantage of what past generation consoles gave them. Take a look at All Pro Football 2K here in the rain. This is a game that actually had weather where rain droplets would reflect off helmets, where when players got hit, water would come off them. This is not new for a sports game. This may be new for EA because they're just now getting to the point where they can seemingly do this. But why is it that other games were able to have these things in them decades ago? And EA right now is just getting to the point they can, and they're basically saying, hey, if it wasn't for next-gen consoles, we don't have the ability to have snow impact the helmet. We don't have the ability for fabrics to be impacted. We don't have the real-time surface and material shaders upgraded to the point the higher processing power of the CPU was needed to represent surfaces that react to water. That's not accurate, at least with what other games have done. Right? I'll go back and I'll show you the clip again. These are things that have been in games years and consoles ago. This is why EA is continually behind. Not just in gameplay. We know the gameplay it's behind. Right? That's not debatable. But you have to understand the concept here of they're selling you something on a next-gen console. They're telling you that they needed a next-gen console to bring this to the customer. And I'm showing you a game that is 12 years old. That is doing the same thing then that they're just now being able to do. This is why Madden can't improve. This is why when it does improve, it's a snail's pace. Going forward, though, I want to talk about another selling point they had this year that one of my viewers brought up to me. They went through the next gen is now going to have next gen replays, which a lot of us kind of mocked in the community because we all know replays is something we, for the most part, skip through, right? You might watch a couple of them unless it's a spectacular play. A lot of people don't devote their time to watching the game replay things, but they're focused on this ball carrier speed, time in the pocket, time the ball is in flight. The reason that's interesting is someone pointed out, if we stay within the 2K realm, NBA 2K15 had this. In the dunk contest, they pulled the verticals. So again, it's showing you, not just EA versus 2K. EA in terms of being in the marketplace as a sports game. Set aside the fact that it's the only licensed NFL product. This is now not only a past football game they're openly behind, but now in the marketplace, a basketball game from 5 years ago on a past generation console that they're just now getting to the point of, hey, this is what we're integrating. This is what we're putting in the game. This is what causes the conflict in the community, where people get frustrated that they see things like this being put into a game, and yet they don't understand that the reason EA has to do this is because they've all been there before, and they're just trying to keep up with the Joneses, if you will. But the reality is, with EA's case, the Joneses live 2 developments over, right? They're in a massive house. EA is in an outhouse, figuratively. They're still trying to get working plumbing in their house. I don't understand. Unless you, at this point, intentionally go into work with the concept of not making the best product, unless you actually strive to not put your best foot forward, unless you are working towards a stagnant and stale product, unless you're doing things that hinder making the game better, I don't understand how EA can get so far behind. I don't know how, as a gamer, anyone in that building could go play 2K8, 2K5, other sports titles, any football manager on PC, and look at Madden and be proud of what they've accomplished, whether they've been there 8 years or 8 weeks, because in every single game, there's something they can point at and say, hey, we're missing this. We don't have this implemented right. Our gamers deserve this. Another game is giving it to them. Right? But the other side of this is, and this is where I'd really love to challenge anyone in the community, where are we taking Madden? What aspect of Madden are we using and saying this is the standard for which all other games will be judged? Right? There's not a hockey creator. There's not a combat sports creator. There's not a basketball creator that sits there and takes Madden and says, okay, Madden is the standard in this. And therefore, every other sports game is going to be held to Madden's standard. When you talk about a game that has that NFL exclusivity agreement, it should be the standard in at least one thing. Okay? Do I expect it to be the standard in every single thing? Of course not. And if you do, curve that a little bit. That's an unrealistic expectation. Would I love for Madden to set the standard for simulation gameplay across all sports titles? Absolutely. For a while, would I argue that they may have held the standard for graphics? Perhaps. But right now, it seems like the only thing this company wants to lead is how many times they have to tweet that they've broken their product on a patch, how many times they have to tell you they're sorry because the servers don't work right, how many times they embarrass themselves because they try to promote an event and the servers can't hold it so the game crashes, how humiliated a company can be by having a tournament where players run the same play over and over and over again, how many developers can block customers on social media because they're frustrated with the product. I mean, those are things technically, I guess if I was being completely unbiased, those are things technically EA does lead in. I don't see any other game in the marketplace that's so bad that people go to someone's channel and say, hey, this guy makes a living off talking about how bad this game is, and people do that to me on the daily, so I suppose they are leading that, right? But are those really the things you want this game to be leading? Are those really things that EA should be leading, given the opportunity they have with the NFL, with the NFL Players Association, with, again, I said it in the last video, the largest motion capture studio in the world? Imagine having all the resources and having none of the product, right? Imagine looking at what the independent games have done and what they could do with 5% of the resources that EA has. Somewhere there's a giant disconnect. And the community has grown continually frustrated with this. And I think this year, more than any, in a couple days, when we all get our hands on this game and we realize it's the same game drug onto another console, that the changes they made are seemingly something that could have been done with the current consoles, you're going to have the biggest backlash against this game that you've ever had. And that says a lot for a game whose trailer has been constantly met with dislikes, and a game that has been met with more negative reviews than almost any game in the history of gaming. And I know some people will say, well, that's piling on, well, that's people being negative. That's truly not your determination. That's truly not your judgment call. What other people choose to do because they're disappointed in this game is what they choose to do. If that means they're creating 5 negative reviews, well, then why isn't someone creating 5 positive reviews? If you feel like people are going out and intentionally being quote-unquote mean to Madden, then where are the people that can defend this game? Because when you look at things like this, from All Pro Football to NBA 2K15, and you look at what they're promoting and selling you, and you see them in past games, in past console generations, there's no defending it. If EA was trying to lead, if EA was trying to innovate, if EA was pushing the envelope with their Madden title every single year, we would have one thing we point to and say, hey, all the other games need this. This is the new standard. But we never get that with EA. We've never got that with EA. EA continues to follow And it's not enough that it's following a game from 2008. It's following every other sports title there is. Listen, the NASCAR Heat games came out from an independent developer. The game was actually not even all that good, and you can go back and look and show it does things on a higher level than Madden. There's an exclusivity agreement in that game. But they've managed to find more depth in the way they go through their quote-unquote franchise than EA has. And the only reason that is that EA sits there and intentionally, continually ignores its game modes, ignores its customers, it ignores what's going on in the sports gaming landscape to make sure they put out the worst product possible every single year, this year being no exception. Has to come down to some personal pride. Has to come down to looking in the mirror and saying, you know what, we're going to make the best game we can, and we haven't. And until EA recognizes that, I don't see anything changing. Love to know your guys' thoughts on this. Appreciate you checking it out. You know I will be back in the week with more commentary.